Hi Guy, welcome back TV Spoilers. Summer Newman's return to Genoa City did not arrive quietly, nor did it carry the lightness of nostalgia or reconciliation. It arrived wrapped in shock, urgency, and unresolved history triggered by the disturbing news that her mother, Phyllis Summers, had launched a direct and reckless attack on Newman Enterprises. The gravity of that information pulled Summer back like a magnetic force, cutting short whatever distance she had placed between herself and the city that had shaped her, hurt her, and defined her most complicated relationships. Genoa City had always been a place where power and emotion collided, but now it felt more volatile than ever, and Summer stepped back into it already braced for impact. She returned not just as a daughter worried about her mother's unraveling, but as a woman who knew, deep down, that unfinished business awaited her in every familiar corner. Especially where Kyle Abbott was concerned. Her first instinct was not revenge, nor romance, but clarity. Summer sought out Phyllis immediately, driven by a need to understand what had pushed her mother to such an extreme act against Newman Enterprises. The situation was bigger than scandal. It was existential. Newman Enterprises was not just a corporation, but a symbol of control, legacy, and dominance in Genoa City, and Phyllis attacking it was akin to declaring war on an entire power structure. As Summer absorbed the reality of the chaos unfolding, she could feel the familiar weight of her mother's instability pressing against her own sense of responsibility. Phyllis's actions forced Summer into an uncomfortable position once again, caught between loyalty and logic, between protecting her mother and acknowledging the damage she was causing. This was not new territory for Summer, but it was exhausting nonetheless, and it sharpened her awareness that everything in Genoa City was on the brink of fracturing. It was in the midst of this emotional turbulence that Summer encountered something she had not prepared herself for. Seeing Kyle Abbott with Claire Grace was not part of any plan she had formed upon returning. The sight struck her with a suddenness that stole her breath, stirring emotions she had long convinced herself were under control. Kyle was not just an ex-husband. He was a chapter of her life that had never truly closed, no matter how many times she had tried to rewrite its ending. Watching him with Claire awakened a mixture of jealousy, regret, and longing that she had buried beneath layers of ambition and self-preservation. It was not merely about losing Kyle to someone else. It was about confronting the reality that he had moved forward, while she had carried their history like a scar she refused to acknowledge. Kyle and Claire's closeness was not accidental or superficial. They were united by a shared objective, working together to remove Andre Charles from Genoa City, an effort that demanded trust, strategy, and a mutual understanding of risk. This collaboration forged a bond between them, one built on alignment rather than impulse, and that connection was evident in the ease with which they navigated each other's presence. For Summer, witnessing this dynamic was both infuriating and unsettling. Claire represented something Summer was not, new, and tainted by the painful cycles Kyle and Summer had endured together, free from the emotional baggage that had repeatedly weighed their relationship down. Yet that very difference made Claire a threat, not just to Summer's lingering feelings, but to the version of herself she believed Kyle still remembered. As Summer processed what she was seeing, a decision began to crystallize within her. This was not a moment for passive acceptance or quiet withdrawal. Summer had never been a woman who watched from the sidelines while something she wanted slipped through her fingers. The realization that she still wanted Kyle, that the bond they shared was far from extinguished, pushed her into action. She resolved to reclaim her place in his life, not through overt confrontation at first, but through calculated presence. Summer understood the power of subtlety, of reminding someone of shared history without uttering a single word. Every interaction became intentional, every glance loaded with implication, every moment designed to reassert her significance. Kyle, meanwhile, found himself caught in a psychological storm he had not anticipated. Summers' return reopened wounds he believed had healed, forcing him to confront emotions he had deliberately set aside in order to move forward with Claire. His connection with Claire felt promising, grounded in mutual respect and a shared mission. But Summers' reappearance reintroduced intensity and familiarity that Claire could not replicate. Summer represented passion, chaos, and a depth of feeling that had once defined him. The contrast between the two women left Kyle unsettled, his sense of direction clouded by conflicting loyalties and unresolved desire. The tension intensified as Summer's presence became impossible to ignore. She no longer lingered in the background but began to assert herself more directly, making it clear that she believed Kyle's feelings for her were not as dormant as he claimed. Her confidence was not performative. It was rooted in years of shared experiences, triumphs, and betrayals that no one else could fully understand. When Summer confronted Claire, the exchange was charged with unspoken hostility, a battle of composure and implication rather than open hostility. Summer positioned herself as the rightful constant in Kyle's life, subtly undermining Claire's place by emphasizing the depth and longevity of her bond with Kyle. Claire, for her part, was not blind to the shift in dynamics. She could sense Kyle's growing internal conflict, the way his focus wavered when Summer entered the room, the hesitation that crept into his decisions. While Claire had approached her relationship with Kyle from a place of purpose and alignment, Summer's return introduced emotional volatility that threatened to destabilize everything they had built. Claire found herself questioning not only Summer's intentions, but Kyle's ability to fully commit to the future they were tentatively shaping together. The pressure mounted, transforming what had been a strategic alliance into an emotional battleground. Kyle's internal struggle became the emotional core of this unfolding drama. He was torn between the security and clarity Claire offered and the undeniable pull of his past with Summer. Loyalty clashed with desire, logic with memory. Every choice felt like a betrayal of someone, including himself. He could not deny that Summer still held a powerful place in his heart, nor could he dismiss the genuine connection he was developing with Claire. The triangle tightened, each point exerting pressure on the others, threatening to collapse under the weight of unresolved emotions and competing agendas. As Summer continued to press forward, her return began to fracture the fragile equilibrium Kyle and Claire had established. What had once felt like a promising partnership now seemed vulnerable, shadowed by doubt and suspicion. Summer's presence acted as a catalyst, exposing cracks that had previously gone unnoticed. The tension extended beyond personal relationships, intertwining with the larger chaos surrounding Newman Enterprises and Phyllis's destructive actions. Everything in Genoa City felt interconnected, each personal conflict amplifying the larger sense of instability. By the time the dust began to settle, it was clear that Summer's return had irrevocably altered the landscape. The love triangle between Summer, Kyle, and Claire was no longer a possibility but a reality, one fraught with emotional landmines and unpredictable consequences. The question was no longer whether Kyle would be forced to choose, but when and at what cost. As loyalties wavered and emotions escalated, one truth loomed large: someone would be left shattered by the decision ahead, and Genoa City was once again on the brink of a dramatic reckoning, with the next move promising to change everything. The truth about Claire's past did not surface gently, nor did it arrive with the clarity of a clean confession. Instead, it emerged as an unsettling fragment, a half-formed clue that felt wrong long before its meaning was fully understood. In Genoa City, secrets rarely stayed buried forever, and when this one began to resurface, it carried with it the weight of choices made under pressure, alliances formed in desperation, and a chapter of Claire's life she had fought relentlessly to leave behind. What initially appeared to be an ambiguous detail soon revealed itself as a doorway into something far darker. Something tied unmistakably to Jordan and the destructive orbit he had created around himself and anyone unfortunate enough to be pulled into it. For Claire, the reemergence of this buried truth was not simply an inconvenience or a threat to her reputation. It was the collapse of a carefully constructed identity, one she had built piece by piece after surviving circumstances that demanded silence and obedience. The past she had hidden was not defined by innocence or victimhood alone, but by a secret role she had played while entangled in Jordan's world. A role that blurred the line between survival and complicity. Claire had convinced herself that burying that version of herself was an act of self-preservation, not deception. Yet as the clues aligned and the implications grew impossible to ignore, she was forced to confront the reality that what she had concealed now had the power to destroy everything she had rebuilt. Kyle was not prepared for what he uncovered. The discovery did not come as a dramatic reveal engineered for confrontation, but as a quiet realization that hollowed him out from the inside. Piece by piece, the image of Claire he had trusted began to fracture, replaced by questions he could not silence. The connection between Claire and Jordan's criminal past struck at the core of Kyle's sense of judgment. He had believed he knew who Claire was, believed that their relationship had been founded on honesty and mutual purpose. Learning that she had hidden such a fundamental truth made him question not only her integrity, but his own ability to see people clearly. The sense of betrayal Kyle experienced was profound and destabilizing. It was not rooted solely in the existence of Claire's past involvement, but in the deliberate choice to keep it from him. Trust, once broken, did not shatter cleanly. It eroded slowly, infecting every memory and every shared moment with doubt. Kyle found himself replaying their history, scrutinizing past conversations and gestures for signs he might have missed. The realization that he had unknowingly built intimacy on an incomplete truth left him feeling exposed and foolish. Emotions he struggled to reconcile with the lingering affection he still felt for Claire. Claire, meanwhile, was unraveling under the weight of exposure. She had anticipated fear, anger, even condemnation from the world if her past ever resurfaced. But the pain of seeing Kyle's trust collapse was something she had never fully prepared for. She understood why he felt deceived, yet she could not escape the belief that her silence had been necessary. To Claire, revealing her past had always felt like surrendering control, inviting judgment without context, and risking everything she had worked to become. Kyle's inability to immediately accept the truth felt like a confirmation of her deepest fear, that she would forever be defined by the worst chapter of her life. The fracture between them widened with each passing moment, not because of explosive conflict, but because of the quiet distance that settled in its place. Kyle retreated inward, wrestling with a relentless internal conflict. Love urged him toward understanding, toward empathy for a woman who had survived something extraordinary. Betrayal, however, demanded distance, caution, and a reevaluation of everything he thought he knew. He could not reconcile these opposing impulses, and the paralysis left him emotionally inaccessible just when Claire needed him most. It was during this period of emotional isolation that Holden Novak entered Claire's orbit in an unexpected way. He did not seek her out with intention or strategy. Rather, he became a witness to her unraveling at a moment when she had no strength left to perform resilience. Holden saw a woman stripped of defenses, weighed down by a history she had carried alone for far too long. His presence offered something Kyle could not provide in that moment, unfiltered support without judgment, a space where Claire could exist without needing to justify her past or defend her choices. Holden's role in Claire's life grew quietly but significantly. He did not position himself as a savior or an alternative, but as a steady presence willing to listen. In his company, Claire allowed herself to articulate the burden she had carried, the fear that her past would always resurface to claim what little happiness she found. Holden's empathy did not erase her pain, but it softened the isolation that had intensified since Kyle's withdrawal. For the first time, Claire felt understood without being interrogated, supported without being evaluated. Kyle observed this shift with conflicted emotions of his own. Seeing Claire lean on Holden forced him to confront the consequences of his emotional distance. While he believed his need for space was justified, he could not ignore the sense of displacement that accompanied watching someone else become her source of comfort. This awareness deepened his internal struggle, amplifying the tension between his unresolved love for Claire and a betrayal that continued to haunt him. Kyle was caught between reclaiming emotional closeness and protecting himself from further deception, uncertain which path would lead to greater loss. As the situation escalated, Jordan's shadow loomed larger over Genoa City. The resurfacing of Claire's past connection to him created an opportunity he was unlikely to ignore. Whether through manipulation or indirect influence, the potential for Jordan to exploit the secret added another layer of pressure to an already volatile situation. Claire was forced to confront the terrifying possibility that her past was not finished with her, that Jordan's reach could extend far enough to dismantle her present and poison her future. The strain on Claire and Kyle's relationship became unbearable. Their future together stood on unstable ground, eroded by doubt, fear, and unresolved questions. Claire grappled with the realization that love might not be enough to overcome the damage caused by her silence. Kyle faced the equally painful truth that forgiveness could not be rushed, even when the cost of delay threatened to push Claire further away. As Claire continued to seek solace in Holden's understanding presence, and Kyle remained trapped between suspicion and longing. The balance of their relationship shifted in ways neither could fully control. The secret that had once seemed safely buried now dictated every interaction, every choice, and every unspoken thought. Genoa City, ever unforgiving, seemed poised to amplify the fallout, transforming personal pain into public consequence. In the end, the question was no longer whether Claire's past would destroy her relationship with Kyle, but whether the truth would ultimately redefine who she was allowed to become. With Jordan's influence threatening to resurface and Holden growing closer as Kyle drifted further away, Claire stood at the center of a storm she could no longer outrun. And as the weight of her secret pressed down on all three of them, one undeniable truth emerged: the next revelation would not merely test their relationships. It would decide which bonds would survive and which would be lost forever. On our TV Spoilers channel, I always seek content inspiration for each video by compiling short video clips to analyze and offer my personal opinions. This channel specializes in analyzing, theorizing, and discussing plot points in the Young and the Restless series from the perspective of a longtime fan. Through this, viewers can gain deeper, more objective, and more interesting perspectives. Subscribe to the channel to stay updated on the latest news about the Young and the Restless series.